What's up, everybody? Shawn here with another Live to Roll. We got a great show for you guys today. So we're going to be talking about the Easterseals Film Challenge and talking to one of the film's stars, or you guys are all like part of the production stars, everything of the film, Emergency Plan, which honestly was super great. I watched it. If you guys haven't got a chance to watch it, you can take a break real quick, watch it, click the description below, check it out so you can come back and join the conversation. But yeah, we're going to be talking to them about everything that goes into, the production of making the film, and a little bit about the Easter Film Challenge, Easterseals Film Challenge, and even about disaster preparedness in an emergency, because that is something that's important for people with disabilities. So let's get into some introductions. I am Shawn. I am a C5, C6 quadriplegic from a snowboarding accident 21 years ago. Bobby, you want to go ahead, and then we'll let
Yeah. What's up, everyone? Bobby Rohan, Southern California here. C56 is right along with Shawn. I've been hurt for 36 years, and great to be here. Great to have these wonderful guests. We got three of them, and can't wait to see. Can't wait to hear their story. I just watched earlier today the emergency plan film, so I can't wait to dive into it. But I'm going to pass it over because she was on last year. And Anna, you can pass it on to your friends here. But I'm going to introduce Anna. And I didn't get your last name. I'm sorry, Anna.
Yeah, so my last name is Packman. Can you still hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, great. Yeah, having a little technical difficulty with the earbuds, but glad the computer's picking it up. So hi, my name is Anna Packman. I am the creator, the director, writer, producer of Emergency Plan. I'm a filmmaker, disability advocate, marketing executive. I wear a lot of hats, and I'm so excited to be here with you again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And then I know you have some of your co-hosts. If you want to introduce your co-host.
Yeah, well, I think there's no one better than them to introduce themselves. So I am so fortunate to have had Margot Gignac and James Ian as the stars in my film. So, guys, do you want to introduce yourselves?
James, why don't you go ahead, and then we can let Margot. Oh, never mind, James. Audio is not coming in. Did it mute possibly? It says that you've muted yourself. Sometimes that'll happen in this program. If it's not working, you can just hang up and pop back on. So in that case, Margot, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I thought we would end it on another quad, but my name is Margot Gignac. I play Jasmine in the film. I am a C4, C5 incomplete quadriplegic. Asia C, if we're gonna get technical.
Okay.
Due to a drunk driver car accident. Almost 15 years ago now.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, another quad in the house. That's
got 3 quads in the house.
And no, that's really great. And then James, we got your audio back.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Shawn and Bobby. James here. I have a spinal muscular atrophy type 3 and C5 palsy from a surgery that I had on my spine and my neck back in November. I'm an actor and a singer, and was fortunate enough to be a part of this great film that Anna created, produced, directed, and I play Eddie, who is the father of the family. So.
Yeah. I did forget to say that I was an actor, but I figured
that.
Yeah. It was there.
And you guys were, your performances in the movie were really good. Like I was just talking to my wife on the way over here, like just about how good the film was actually, because we watched probably I think 6 or so different ones, and honestly, you guys are just the production, everything about it. So Anna, great job with the production. Like the production value was amazing, and you guys' performances was really incredible. It honestly
Thank you.
I was like for you guys' son, the kid, I was like, oh, this kid's going after all alone. No. Because, yeah, so you guys just did a really great job. Do you guys want to cry?
Thank you.
It started to, wanted to well up a little bit. Just kidding.
Especially when you let your kid go, it's just like, oh.
No, yeah, that's what's cool. I thought that's what was cool was kind of like not just about disability, but like being parents, like parenting with a disability and like, what you do. And like I mentioned too, the emergency preparedness, like having a plan in those situations is definitely a good thing to have. But do you guys want to start off? We'll get more into the film and like production and everything. But do you want to just, for people that don't know what the Easterseals Film Challenge is, do any of you guys want to kind of give a little bit of a brief breakdown of kind of, what it is, when it happens, and kind of how people can get involved, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I can take that. And first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. I'm so glad to hear that you enjoyed the film, and it was a very special project. It was a very important project. I was actually just on a call earlier today with 40 emergency preparedness organizations around the country, pitching this film to people at FEMA, to people at the Red Cross, and we just actually announced officially we're partnering with there's an amazing nonprofit in this space actually called the partnership for oh my god, sorry, it's been a long day. Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies. They're they're going to be so happy with me that I can't remember the name exactly, but they're incredible. I've been connected with them for a while just through my own personal giving. If you're watching this and you're able to, definitely give them a donation or go to their website disasterstrategies.org, because they help people with disabilities during each and every disaster, between natural disasters, wars. Every time something like this happens, they're there for our community in the United States and around the world, working with just major organizations to support our community, which, it's comforting to know they're there. In terms of, other great nonprofits, so Easterseals is a social services organization that's very well known in the US. And they partnered with Nick Novicki, who started the Disability Film Challenge 12 years ago. Nick, for those who don't know him, and I'm very surprised if there's anyone in our community who doesn't know Nick, he is an actor, a comedian. He happens to be a little person, so he has a disability himself. And he started this challenge, which is a 5-day filmmaking competition, um, to give people with disabilities the opportunity and a platform to make our own films, get our work out there. Because in this industry, the best way to show that you can do something is to go ahead and do it. And it's really become a pipeline program for people with disabilities, both in front of and behind the camera. I would say more so in front of, for sure. There have been some incredible success stories where we're pulling up the rear. We're trying to get the people behind the camera, there too. But, the idea is, get a team together. Every team has to have at least one person with a disability. We had a lot more than that. As you can see, I actually have cerebral palsy. We should have done visual descriptions for our friends who need it. So I'll do mine right now. So I'm a white presenting woman with curly shoulder length brown hair. I am wearing a tan sweater. I am sitting in front of a TV in a poorly lit room because I don't have a cinematographer here with me. It's very important. One of the things I learned doing this challenge is the difference between a director and a cinematographer. And so, yeah, it's basically every year, Nick and his team, they put out a theme. This year was thriller/suspense. Everyone who wants to enter the challenge has to do a movie in that genre. They also give us some prompts in terms of locations and props that we have to use just to prove that we did it during the one challenge week, because you're supposed to do the whole thing in 5 days. So from shooting the film to editing, sound, color, all of those things that go into making a movie. Normally, like in Hollywood, it takes a couple of years. He gives us 5 days. So thanks, Nick. But it's great because it actually makes it easier to put together a team, because instead of saying like, hey, we're working on this project and who knows, like, if there's an indefinite term, you can say like, hey, can you help me out with a shoot? It's going to be like this particular day. And so someone's volunteering for a day. Margot and James, being actors and representatives of the film, got roped into a lot more. So thank you both for being here. But yeah, it happens every year around the same time, usually end of March, beginning of April. And for anyone who's interested in getting involved, this year you could watch all the movies, watch our movie, watch, there's about 100 movies. A lot of them are really great. And next year, start thinking about it, start forming your team, start, see who's in the challenge this year, hit them up, see what they're working on.
So do you already kind of have a team and a crew and everything put together before you know what the topic and stuff is, or do you kind of wait and go ahead and start putting everything together?
So
Like for
Shawn, this year was thrilling because we met last year. Last year we did the theme was buddy comedies, and I'm actually a trained comedy writer. So I actually even thought about not doing it this year and just like doing some small role in someone else's team or something. And then I thought, it's right there in the name. It says challenge. Let me challenge myself. Let me try to do something that's not funny at all. And maybe I shouldn't do comedy anymore. I don't know. Um, I didn't, but no, I didn't have the team together.
This is like what you had to do this year is the opposite of what you had to do last year. This had to be very serious and not funny at all in any matter because emergency preparation is definitely not a laughing matter.
Yeah, for sure. So it was definitely a big change. There are some team members that I've worked with actually for quite a while, mostly like on the producing and writing side, who were assistant producers, assistant writers. Um, so there wasn't one clown behind the scenes. There were a bunch of clowns behind the scenes, and somehow we pulled it off. But in terms of like the specific crew, it just depends on availability. So a lot of people were new to the project. This is my first time working with James and Margot, and I'm so excited that we got the chance to work together.
Yeah.
And so to get them involved, how did they become involved with your I mean, so you hear the plan and then you put together and you got James and Margot. Is that the case?
Yeah. So once I had the concept, it was just kind of figuring out like who would be good for these roles. And parents, and we had an audition process, and they'll say I slid into their DMs.
Just mine. Just mine.
Well, I slid into James' DM in person, so I had no
Oh, you
actually
did.
I had never met Margot in person before she showed up at my apartment to do this project. So
But it didn't feel that way.
yeah,
yeah, sometimes you just gotta
So,
people like that. Uh,
so for you, Margot and James, and I guess I'll start with Margot, getting a script like that and knowing what your characters are and putting together on film in that short of time, what is that like as an actor?
I thought it was really exciting. When I saw just the sites for the audition, I was already in tears. I was like, this is beautiful and also so important. So I was really excited. Not that I'm excited for, emergencies and tragedies, but
Yeah,
I was excited to get to work with Anna and get to be part of this really important message and this story.
yeah, cool. How about you, James?
Yeah, I read the script and I was very, very impacted by that. I was like really, really sad reading that and teared up. It was super powerful. In terms of like acting it with Margot, so I met Margot for the first time and we did it, and
Oh,
we
okay.
were and we were, I felt like same with the actor that played Riley. Like it was, we had just met each other, but we were kind of like talking at behind the scenes and just kind of getting to know each other. I think that built like good chemistry and all that stuff. But in terms of like acting it, I really tried just to be in the moment and kind of like feel things as they were happening really. And we shoot things like scene by scene, so you kind of get to like break it up a little bit. But it was definitely a very, very, I would say, emotionally draining experience because you feel a lot doing that.
Yeah, I
And
would say most of the. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think that most of the emotion was pretty authentic on set, and definitely getting to bond with Riley, the actor that played Riley, Charlie. Getting to bond with him made me feel more protective over him, and he was so great and so great to work with. And it's also great to have young talent get to work with people with disabilities because they learn so much, and now the cause means so much for him, and it's just beautiful. And we all, like James and I, both with our somewhat quad paws, were like helping each other, and then we had Charlie helping us. Like he would place the flashlight in my hand in a way that I could grip it nicely, and so it was overall it was a really great environment. Yeah.
That's cool. That sounds kind of fun and cool to do. And you guys really did put in some really like authentic performances. I was gonna actually ask you that.
Thank you.
Were those tears real, or did you guys have to do the little water? Because it looked authentic. Looked, you guys definitely looked.
Well, towards the end, I did. There was a lot of crying throughout the day, so I did have the tear stick at the end as like reinforcements, but the snot was purely me the whole time.
That's a good old
I
fashioned
ran
blood
out of tears.
pressure, runny nose not coming in.
Yeah, no, the runny nose was real.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
I mean,
towards the end, I don't know if it was like dehydration or just crying so much, but I needed the extra boost. But it was real feelings.
So you didn't like if you ever watch Friends when Joey said how he cries for film is he has holes in his pockets and he pulls his hair. That's how he makes himself cry when he was
Yeah.
coaching. Yeah, so you didn't have to do that, James.
I don't think I was gonna say I don't know if that would have worked for them pulling leg hairs out. Well, I don't know how much sensation, but for me, I would have just got a little bit of AD maybe. Would have been like,
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, exactly.
I enjoy the feeling of plucking hair, so I don't know if that would work for me. Is that weird? See, this is when you got to give me the cue that I'm oversharing.
For you, both have actors. Was this your first time doing this kind of film challenge for Easterseals, or have you done other ones in the past?
James, you want to
Margo,
go
you want to
first?
go? Sure. Yeah, so I actually, this is my fourth time doing it. I did it 2 years with the same team or the same director, producer. And then last year went with a group of friends who actually all had my disability. And then this year with on Anna's team. So it's every year is something I really look forward to. And I've been seeing actually more people get involved. Like I mentioned it to a friend last summer, and she's in a film this year, which is I think is really cool. So it's people are like jumping on board, which is nice.
yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah,
How
go ahead,
about
Mark.
you, Margot?
I was gonna say the jumping on to what James said. I feel like the last couple years, everyone has been jumping on the bandwagon with it, myself included. This is my second year with it, and I've noticed that a lot of my disabled actor friends also this is their second year as well. So it's great. It's fun. I
Hmm.
swore that I wouldn't do it, and then every time I get asked, I'm like, okay, yeah, and then it's always worth it because it's like
Yeah,
either with friends in the industry or like you get to make new friends in the industry, and I love it.
I just before I hopped on, I was watching a couple of them, and another one was called Late for Dinner, and I'm like, oh my god, I know two people,
Yeah,
and
Angela.
from
Yeah,
two different worlds. One was Angela, but then the
Yep.
gal at the end of the table, she's in Special Olympics, and I volunteer for Special Olympics, and I'm like, that's my Shannon. I coach her for her speech classes, and I'm like, oh my god, that's Anna. I was just like, wow, that's I got goosebumps, and I'm sure if I watch a few more, I know a couple other of you actors out there, and Danny Gomez and
yeah,
Toby and all. I'm sure they're
yeah,
somewhere along in these, and it's so exciting to see your friends, and then this kind of challenge where you're in a way you're competing against each other in a fun way, and
yeah,
in an acting competitive way that is unique. Uh, you're not going for first, but or you are going for first if you're trying to win your film. But it's just great to see you all on this kind of project together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's funny that you
definitely.
say
Oh, I'll let you say it.
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say it's funny that you say that because I have made so many friends from doing the film challenge. So like, yes, we are competing right now, but like in about 5 days, we're going to be best friends again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
and
quite.
it's surprisingly a really friendly competition. Like we're all truly supportive of one another, even if we are like, I hope I beat you. We all we watch each other's films, and it's just you guys know the community in general is pretty pretty tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like exactly like it's that fun competition where it's like you kind of can
Yeah.
like kind of joke and play with each other a little bit, but it's all really in good fun um and the more people that are in it, and I feel like that's just more exposure to all the films and the challenge, and then to disability, in film. So I think everything about the challenge and stuff is great, and the exposure and stuff. And hopefully, more and more people we like, start to bring in authentic disability things into more TV and film. On the big like from stuff like this. So
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is for Anna. Anna, I was wondering what inspired your film and that, with the radio blasting out, and here are two people that can't get out of the building, and here's this kid that is, has to get out. What inspired that, or what made you think of that concept?
Yeah, so it was a few things. So I think the concept in general, the idea of, it being a disaster movie and about being, a couple who both have disabilities, it was influenced by a couple of things. One was, unfortunately, we've seen it time and time again in disaster situations whenever, a disaster happens, whether, it's here in New York City, we had Hurricane Sandy about 13 years ago, which was terrible. And I had friends who actually were at the time a disabled couple, both of whom used power wheelchairs, and one of them was on a ventilator. And we lost power. Not the whole city, but the part of the city they were in lost power. And I was very lucky because I was one street above that line. And you can imagine how scary it was for them with a vet user just running out of power and like that ticking clock, which is like such an element of thriller movies. So naturally, that type of scenario really lends itself to thrillers. The other thing that happened around the time that the Film Challenge announced the theme this year, that was actually right after the LA fires happened. And even though I'm here in New York City, I have so many friends in LA, especially, from doing this challenge, like so many disabled friends in LA. And so that was something that I was, following closely. And it was, kind of heart wrenching for me to feel like useless, not being able to do anything. And like the most I could do was share resources that I was finding on my social media and just try to amplify that as much as possible in case anyone, could be helped by seeing something I posted. But I also, was seeing these stories that were just heartbreaking. In particular, there was one that completely just stayed with me. It was a father and a son, both of whom were disabled, and they were waiting and waiting all day for emergency services to come and to help them evacuate. And they had done everything right. And they were left behind, and unfortunately, they passed away. And that's, unfortunately, a story that we see happening just far too often, whether it's in a natural disaster, a war. With the pandemic, my God, over 1 million people died. And, we had the head of the CDC going on TV saying, oh, but it's okay because most of the people who are dying have pre-existing conditions. But what is a person with a pre-existing condition? Most likely that is a person with a disability. That's us. So, just the way that, the powers that be put value or don't put value on certain people's lives. And I think like this is really, the country is at a boiling point as far as that's concerned. So I thought it would be very timely where both people with disabilities could relate to it and also people without disabilities. And I think in terms of like the decision to make both of the parents wheelchair users, I think it just raises the stakes, and it's also like a relationship we don't see often, in the media, and it's a relationship that is not thought about on a good day when people are planning. So, for example, like we are like fortunate now in New York City that we have accessible Ubers, we have accessible cabs, but you can't take that transportation as a family if you have two wheelchairs. Like we're at the point of one wheelchair, but you can't get like unless someone could transfer and pull their chair or something. But if you have two power wheelchair users, they're not getting in the same car. And I know I have close friends who are in that situation. Actually, one of our assistant writers and producer on the project, he is in that situation. He and his wife are both disabled. They both use chairs, and they have a child who's around the little boy's age. And I think, for the story, as a screenwriter, you always just want to raise stakes, right? Like, how far can you take the stakes to make, that suspense, that drama really more meaningful? And to me, it was like, okay, it's one thing if it's the two of them alone, but let's give them something to work for. And it was also the other reason for, introducing the Riley character. It was a way to give the characters more agency. Because that was very important to me too, in terms of the representation and the way that these two characters are represented. Like, yes, they are ultimately victims of this situation, but I didn't want to make this a super pity film. And like, I think that's where it's really important to have people behind the camera who have disabilities and understand that nuance, so we can go right up to that line without crossing it.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I think what was it, Anna? Like the day after we finished, like you guys finished cutting it, was the 1 year of the New York earthquake. So the timing,
That's
really right on the nose, Anna. You got it.
Yeah.
That actually happened during last year's film shoot. So we were filming our film Wheelchair Money last year, and one of the guys on set had his head against the wall. He's like, "You guys feel that?" We're like, "No." So it was a little baby earthquake, which I'm very thankful for, because we didn't have a plan for what was going to happen if that actually happened.
Yeah.
yeah, no, that is one of the very things. But go ahead,
There
Bobby.
was I was going to say there was a couple questions in our chat that I just want to make sure that they got answered. Our good friend Ken, he was asking, what's the prize for winning the best film?
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Margot.
I just said bragging rights, but I was joking. Anna knows best.
Yeah, so all the prizes, in case I need a fact check, are on the disabilityfilmchallenge.com website. And Nick does such a great job. He puts together these amazing partnerships with movie studios, like the award ceremonies at Sony Pictures. The films are seen by major casting directors, so actors, hint, hint, get involved. And so the prize for winning is a film grant to expand upon the project. Actually, a few people have been asking me, like, what happens next? What happens next in this story? I was like, well, help me find, the funding for a feature film, and we'll do it. We'll put it together. So, it's funding to help take the film, to that next level, whether it's like recutting to enter into more film festivals, which is definitely a goal. Although I'm so happy with the way this edit came out. Shout out to Eric Velarde, our editor, who actually is also a quadriplegic. And shout out to
the quads.
Shout out to John Foresca, our cinematographer, who is not here today in my apartment to make me look good, who is also on wheels. He's a paraplegic, and he works in the camera department at The Daily Show with Jon Stewart full time.
Really? That's really cool.
Perfect. And
also mentorships, and also like entries into Oscar qualifying festivals. And so hopefully we win this one, and then Nick gets me an Oscar. That's the goal.
So it sounds like an Easter basket full of prizes there, and lots of avenues to head down in the future, per se. There was another question that I was curious about. Is there a disabled actors union per se?
I mean, I'm with SAG-AFTRA, so I'm with that union, and I'm sure well, I'm sure they would want me to say that they're great with disabled. So I think,
Okay.
is there, Anna? Do you know if there's like a separate one?
Oh,
Oh,
so it's not separate. So there is a disabled artist community committee rather within SAG-AFTRA.
oh.
Yeah.
Look, I'm learning too. Sorry, my dog is drinking water.
That's all right. My dog's usually coming in and barking at me because it wants to eat, so no worries.
And
Uh,
SMA had answered a couple, had mentioned that, and then also mentioned, yeah, that there's committees in SAG in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think I knew about that, so I just winked.
no worries. And then so I was going to go back to our actors, James and Margot. Maybe you can start out, James. What other kind of projects have you been involved with acting, and anything that we could have seen you? You have that face that looks familiar. Like maybe was watching something and like, oh, I think I recognize it. When you're watching a film and you look up his IMB or MBA or whatever that's called in IDM, and I
I am
think I know
thinking.
them, but I look at their films and I'm like, they've been in nothing else I've seen, but I feel like I know him. You have that face, Jason. So, what other films or projects have you been involved with?
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, so mostly, honestly, I was on a TV show when I was a kid, like years ago. Um, I was like a series regular on like a show on BET, and then I did like some national commercials as a kid. More recently, like I took a long break from acting and stuff. But more recently, I actually do like a lot of print work. So like for some of the like department store brands and all that good stuff. So like I'm on like a billboard right now and like things like that.
Oh,
I did a national commercial like 5 years ago, I think. So I'm just like auditioning a ton, and I'll do like smaller parts, like extra stuff, background and movies and whatnot. But I'm really trying to, really trying to land like a solid juicy role, on a series would be great, or in a movie. So definitely like auditioning a ton. But right now it's like a lot of print. I just did a play. I live in LA. I'm in the process of moving to New York. I did a really cool play about disability that wrapped um, like 2 days before I flew out here for the film challenge in New York, actually. So that was cool. So I'm doing like stage stuff, and like short films. I've done a couple disability focused, projects in that way. But obviously we always want to do more. So, but this is a super cool to be a part of this one.
Yeah. How about you, Margot? I see in the chat you're a superstar. Yeah, Margot's a superstar.
who said that? Who is lying? I'm just kidding.
and
I've had smaller parts in a few shows. It's definitely been a rough couple years. Um, I think one that you can see, I think it's streaming on Hulu now. I was in an episode of the show The Rookie. I
Okay.
oh
weirdly
yeah,
get recognized for that one, which I'm always like, really? Oh, so that's fun. And then I was in an episode of this show called Leverage Redemption that I believe is on Amazon Prime, and that episode I believe comes out May 1st.
Nice.
hmm
So there's that. I also do modeling, which is a lot better here in New York ever since I moved here, so that's great. So I was in Target. I was in Times Square once, but for like a tech brand, which how ironic for me to be a face of of
yeah, I
a
have
tech
no
brand. I was
idea.
like, I must be a brilliant actor if I could pull this off. I said it to my friend. I'm like, does it look like I know how to use the computer? She goes, you're not even looking at the screen. I said, you're right. So that was humbling. But yeah, just like a few TV shows. I've auditioned a bunch, gotten close. I was in a pilot that was really exciting with some pretty big actors, but then it ended up not getting green lighted, which was sad. But yeah, I'm hoping it comes back around soon.
Oh, good, good.
But May
And
1st, you can see me.
and for each of you, how long have you been acting?
Me?
Yeah, or for both of
So,
you. How
uh,
long have you been?
Um, well, so I got injured in 2010. Before that, I was training to be a dancer, hopefully on Broadway. That was the goal. And then after my injury, somebody mentioned to me, oh, it's pretty common for dancers who get injured. Obviously, my injury is a little bit more dramatic than, like an ankle injury. But they naturally transitioned into acting, and then I started taking acting classes, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I found this kind of space again. So I'd say almost 13 years now.
14, 15? Yeah. Okay. How about
yeah,
you,
that's
James?
about the same for me, Bobby. Yeah, like for a few years as a kid, I took like a break, and then I got back into it like 2012, 2013, or 2013. Yeah, so about the same as Margot actually.
Mm.
But I wasn't living in LA for a good chunk of that, so LA like really going at it was like the last like 6 years, 7 years.
Oh,
That's cool.
that probably helps come into LA.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
and times have changed. I mean, Tobias is an OG. I
Yeah,
remember seeing it was always him and I, Angela,
yeah.
and a couple others auditioning with our paper headshots, trying not to drop them in person back in the day.
Try not to drop them. That's great.
That's
Yeah.
And yeah, and you find, I mean, now you see, now more and more of, real disabled actors. I just
Yeah.
saw there was a new Netflix one that they said is, they said, but the quote just had me chuckling as they said, not original, but verified. That's what they use the word verify. She's verified to have a disability. Playing someone in a chair, and I was just like, oh, I guess they have to be verified now or something.
They
But
do.
yeah, but it is nice to see more and more commercials, kids commercials, and of, those who are disabled, and it might make you actually happy as well. And what
Yeah.
is it like if you do get beat up and they're using regular, able person, non-disability person for a role?
Yeah.
I'll let
Uh,
you go,
Does
James.
anyone really want to hear my answer?
Yeah, I do. I do really want
yeah.
to hear it.
You can keep it
Um,
real. It's okay.
uh,
Yeah, and you don't
it
have to keep it
sucks.
PG. Mhm. Yeah.
What sucks the most sometimes is the original role, the breakdown comes out, you get the audition, and it's written specifically for a wheelchair user. And then this has happened to me a couple times. And then I get optioned for the role, and then it turns out that they ended up either completely canceling the role, just taking out the disabled character, or putting an able body, or putting someone that's not a wheelchair user but has another disability, like an amputee, for example, and putting them in a wheelchair, which is less painful, I guess. But at the same time, I'm like, you guys wanted a wheelchair user. This is just your way of not making the set wheelchair accessible, I guess.
Right.
So I get a little frisky. I can keep going, but I won't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not.
Yeah.
It's gotta hurt,
Yeah.
and it's gotta piss you off for reasons that they just don't want to accommodate. Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot has to do with accommodations.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
I'll jump in here as a producer. Like, I
Please,
understand why
yeah,
you do it, and I think it's less. A lot of times it's less about accommodations, but more from the sense of like they're afraid that putting in someone who's unknown versus like they could get a celebrity to do it. And the problem is like celebrities get rewarded for doing this because they win awards for playing
Yeah.
disabled characters more often than not. So like Oscar voters stop rewarding these people for doing this thing.
Yeah.
Um, if there's no incentive, they're just not going to go for these roles. But and I think like what a lot of times they miss because they're busy or they're just ignorant or whatever, and also because like again, this is why it's important to have people behind the scenes like in the executive roles at studios and networks as well. And I worked at a network for a number of years before, which, I think it was interesting being at the table that, they did start seeing disability like in a different light, just having, like being part of a very small network where we're around each other every day. So like, or they thought like I would get mad and run them over. I don't know. But, I think the thing that needs to happen more is just being more strategic about it, of like both things are important. The authenticity is important. Having that star power who's gonna, bring in the views, the bankroll, whatever it is, you can't make the project without that. So how do you pair them up? How do you get creative in the writer's room to make sure that like you have the authenticity in the disabled character and you pair them up with a big star? So you have the best of both worlds there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just say on that note, unfortunately nowadays social media plays a big factor in it, which is also frustrating, to have to do that. But I always say it's not like, as like for the craft of acting, I understand able-bodied actors wanting to, like channel a disabled character or learn their experience. And that's all fine and well, and I get it. Like, that's the craft of acting, is being somebody else. But until it's like equal on both sides, that we get auditions for non-disabled specific roles equally as they would, then no, they can't play somebody with a disability.
Yeah. I had I worked at a rehabilitation center and was asked to help an actor come in, and had to train him how to be a quad. And, you're like, okay. And it was Joaquin Phoenix for Don't Worry, He Can't Get Far on Foot. And as I'm working with him for a few days, in my mind, I'm just like, instead of training somebody, they should be using somebody who actually is a quad that, you don't have to train, and they're going to be using the chair. So just put have the disabled actor just sit in the older chair. That's all they have to do. And then act, because there's plenty of them out there. Any one of you could have done.
And my favorite thing when non-disabled actors have to play quads specifically, even if they are with another disability, they're always like, oh, it was really hard to practice the stillness. And I'm like, you've never met a quad. Look, how much have I fidgeted throughout this entire video? I am never still. I am never still. And when I've read that, I've heard that so many times, and I'm like, you got it all wrong.
Yeah,
no, I'm fidgeting right now.
I was gonna say, I'm doing the whole show. I'm leaning back with my low blood pressure.
Me too. I'm back and forth.
I'm like, whoo. You'll see Bobby do his little thing. Like,
yeah.
Usually I have people telling me, Marco, can you move less? See, that's why you need authenticity.
My wife was always telling me in a restaurant, watch it, somebody's coming behind you. I'm like, okay, I wasn't moving yet, but she knows I'm about to do, my thing. And she's
leaning.
Yeah. So when anybody's coming behind me, she's like, somebody's coming behind you. I'm like, all right, but I wasn't leaning yet. She goes, I know you're about to. She knows me. So,
yeah.
I was gonna say, Leah does the same thing to me if we're out at a restaurant or something. She'll be like, the waiter's coming, watch out, don't do it. Yeah.
No, depending how small the table is, my friends just help me because they're like, Margot, I know you're gonna knock everything over, and they're right. They're right.
But yeah, no, that is great that there's starting to have a little bit more actual representation. Hopefully it kind of veers. But I like Anna's idea with the Oscars, the Academy kind of like making that like don't reward people for playing somebody with a disability. Like, I understand that can be a difficult role for somebody, but like, I don't know that that's the way to go. I feel like rewarding somebody that's a great actor with a disability.
I've been asked the question why, in a support group, I run a lot of support groups, and they're like, why do they, get, these stars to, act if they're not disabled? Like, especially it was the big one with Bryan Cranston. I forget whatever the movie was called. uh, and the only thing I came up with is like probably because of his name. I mean, and most likely they used it because he has a name and it will sell at the box office, and with using three big names in that movie, if I remember correctly. Anna, what was I'm so bad with names, but I know it had three big actors, and that's what I said. And I mean, is that the case when you see a movie like that, Anna?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. But if I remember, I don't remember who played him, the assistant, the younger guy. If he was a big name
Um,
actor. Oh no, it was Kevin
Yeah,
Hart.
yeah,
Kevin
it's
Kevin
Hart
Hart.
was in
Kevin
it.
Hart, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
He was a
right.
big name. Yeah, it was a big name. Yeah, and again, that's why it's like, okay, it's understandable. Like the more big names you have, the more, like it's all about safety. Like people in Hollywood just don't like to take risks. So, but I think ultimately we've seen other examples like Coda, for example, where, shout out to Sean Hayter, who, amazing director, fought very hard for that whole film to cast a bunch of people, with deaf actors, and then Troy Kotsur went ahead and won an Oscar for that. Marley Matlin was amazing in that. I don't remember his last name, Daniel, the son, really cute son. He so I think there are these other examples where you see that it just makes the whole project better, and audiences reward that very much. And I think also generationally, Gen Z, like this new generation that's coming up, they're much more discerning, because they're also used to seeing things directly on, to Margot's point, social media. And there's a double-edged sword because there are a lot of creators who have millions of followers on like TikTok, because these young kids like are just curious about disability. They'll go follow them, and they want to see. Thank you, Daniel Durant. Thanks, that's me. Was in that movie, in Coda. But like the Gen Zs, they grew up seeing people in a like this very like constant, real social media feed, much more than I think we're all kind of the three of us are kind of the same generation. Much more than like when I was growing up, like we didn't have any of these things. So like my only option was watching Saved by the Bell, and the only representation was some non-disabled girl in a janky hospital chair, like getting pushed out of one scene. And like, someone like Margot could have been that girl. And it would have been better. So I think that like Hollywood is waking up. I think like we're in this era where like I know people, personally, it's funny for me, like when I talk to coworkers outside of this space, like I probably sound like the biggest name dropper, but it's just like you just happen to be my friends, like, and they're on these big shows. So that's really cool. That's really really cool to see, and I think like we're seeing more of that, and hopefully things like the film challenge will create a pipeline, because you also need trained talent, because you see those social media influencers, like no shade against them, but like as a director, I've auditioned a lot of those people, and they're just not very good actors. It's a different skill. So I think you need both. I think you need skilled actors, and I think you need that pipeline to get them to that point. And actually, shout out to someone who kind of has transcended all of that, Ali Stroker, who is actually part of our movie. She plays the voice on the radio, so we don't see her, but we hear Ali. And I'm just so grateful for her for helping out with this project. But she is someone who went ahead and won a Tony, and was actually cast in a role that wasn't written as a person with a disability. Like Ado Annie is just a character in Oklahoma. And yeah, there's no reason why Allie like couldn't play her, shouldn't have played her, and she did, and she won an Oscar. I mean, a Tony for it. The Oscar's
Yeah.
next. Oscar's next, Allie.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was Ali.
That was Allie.
Really
The
cool.
voice. I was going to ask if that was you or who might have been the voice. And did the son that played in your film, did he have a disability as well?
Not that we know of.
Okay.
He no, but we were so lucky to get him. He was amazing, and he's become such an amazing little ally. His mom emailed us and told us that he's been, telling all his friends at school about how important this topic is, and telling them all about us. So
That's
we're at least
cool.
famous at one school in Westchester.
That's
Shout out
amazing.
to
And that's what we need is more allies, like the able-bodied, non-disabled people allies. And starting with someone like that, that's a young, he's going to be spending the rest of his life, I feel like, you know, being an ally to the community. So I think that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're getting towards
Yeah.
the end here. So I do want to promote the movie and everything, but I'm going to ask you guys one question real quick, and for people in the chat. So, as disabled people in real life, do you have an emergency plan for something like this if you were ever to get stuck in your apartment? Especially you wanting to be in New York, those are typically you need an elevator, and I feel like in most places you live in New York, so stuff like the power out, things like that, that can play a major thing. Like we in California just had the major fires and stuff, and you know, so like emergencies are definitely real happening, and we all have to be aware and stay safe. So, do you guys have a plan? Does it like in real life? I'd love to hear
I
from
can
you.
tell you right now, I do not.
Okay.
I grew up in LA and Miami. I've experienced hurricanes and earthquakes, but only as an able-bodied. I have yet to encounter an emergency as a disabled person, and all of my plans would involve somebody having to be there to help me, or like my main concern are my pets. I'm like, do I throw them off the
Yeah.
balcony? I live pretty low. I'm sure they'll survive the fall. Who's gonna throw me down with them? So I have been looking at Anna's website because she does have a lot of links and resources, and I'm like, I gotta make my emergency plan A, B, and C. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely.
But
What
I've
about
also
EJ?
like talked to my building manager and like people that work in the building to, they're all very very aware of me. I'm sure they won't abandon me.
That's one
Yeah.
of the first steps is notifying people because we've
Yeah.
actually just recently started talking about this topic a couple years ago. Because when I first started dating my wife, she asked me like kind of that question, like what would I do, and I was like, die, burn in the fire, like leave me, like that's what I'm gonna do. Like and she kind of wasn't on board with that plan. So since then we've tried to do some emergency preparedness and try to have a little bit of a plan. But yeah, James, what about you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm in the process of like moving out here with my girlfriend actually, who's non-disabled, but we've already talked about like has to be ground floor, just in case there's anything, because like even though I am ambulatory, like I could not make it down multiple flights of stairs. That's really difficult. So that's like one thing. And then I have a lot of good friends, in LA and New York. So I always like I have a I talk to my friends about, hey, if something happens and I need you, can I call you? And so obviously my friends are good, and they'll help me out. So but I do have like make sure I have a backup with someone, but like ground floor living and making sure I know where exits are. I definitely try to be proactive as far as much as I can.
Yeah, now that's great. To have at least some basic plan. And yeah, that's what Leah, my wife, she's in the chat.
No comment.
Yeah. I
She's
just
back to my original plan. She's like, yeah, I'll just leave him.
I like that first part.
She's on to something.
Uh, but yeah,
And maybe, I watched, I watched the film, and at the beginning, and maybe I have to rewatch it because I only watched it once, but I felt like James, you dropped the ball
oh,
on your plan because
yeah,
Margot's like, hey,
Yep.
you're just texting, you're not, are you with me? Like we got to leave our, he's got to be, we're gonna be stuck here, and he's gonna have to go. Like I was like, poor James, man, that's all of us guys, man. We get the ride
Yeah.
and because
No,
playing our
I kept
little
I
saying
know.
we should leave James's character to just go down with the building at this point.
yeah,
I know about yeah. You're
I
right.
was like,
I told them I felt bad about that because I was like, personally, I wouldn't act like that. But then a lot of my friends are like, I know a lot of dudes that would act like that. Like that was perfect. So I was
Yeah.
like, man. But yeah, that part was hard. I'd be like, I would not be that chill, but some people react differently in situations like that. So
and then I do like it. One of the messages that came out on the radio is like, yeah. Now it was something like, now get out. It was just like, finally, it was just like, if you're there, you're dumb and get out. It's just like, I was like, well, yeah, they already know. So it was just kind of fun. I was cracking up on that one.
Yeah, no, that's all really cool, and that's what we actually this fall again. I forget. I think it's September, October. There's a month for emergency preparedness, and we always do a kind of show. So we will kind of recap and go back and talk about some of this stuff. And like you mentioned, like you're moving, you're getting a new place. You guys are looking ground floor because you don't want to have to worry about stuff like that. Like those
Yep.
are all things to think about and have in mind for stuff. Because yeah, you don't want to be just completely screwed. Like we actually had for one of our first episodes, we did it that we had Ian Reuter, who's like editor in chief for New Mobility magazine. He's like
Mhm.
one of the main contributors and editor for the magazine. But they had power outage up in Portland where he was, and it was in the freezing temps, and he got stuck in his apartment for I think like 3 days with no power and no heat. To keep from freezing, he had to stay in his kitchen, like cordoned off where they had like a heating, like fireplace thing they could do, like, and he literally
Oh
had
my
to
God.
for the few days, and like without like his like a neighbor that was helping him, like he probably like wouldn't have made it, like because he's a quad in a power
Yeah.
trip, he would have been just kind of
Jeez.
like
Oh, these quads,
so
huh?
stuff, yeah, so stuff is real and like it happens to
Yeah.
it can happen, like I always thought of it. I've been in a quad for 21 years now, but like I've never really been stuck like that. But the fact of the matter is, like, it could come, anytime, any day, like in
Hmm.
a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It could happen right now.
it literally could, we could be
Oh,
doing this and we could have some
that's
major something.
that's not an earthquake. That's my dog shaking the tripod.
And it actually did happen in San Diego, and
Yeah.
I
That's
have
true.
been when I was I think it was year 6 or year 5, and maybe year 4 for me. But the Northridge earthquake hit when I was living it, not too far from Northridge. But luckily, I was still living with my parents, but we were not prepared in the sense that at the time I was on breathing treatments, and now there's no power, and you have to do your treatments. So,
Yeah.
we got lucky, knock on wood, that we were able to get a generator that day, and drive to a hardware store to get one. But those are the kind of things that you have to think about with the extra water and all that. So that,
Yeah.
so I think that's a strong message that your film definitely put out with starting, from the basics. How do we get out of a building if there's a fire? Go
Well,
ahead,
one
Anna.
thing I want to leave your viewers with, because and I personally, it's funny because Margot and I are the Eddies here, and like James is the Jasmine. He's ready. And we're like, oh my God, we're ostriching, right? Like we have our head in
Yeah.
the sand because we just don't want to think about this. And I think that's a lot of people, like when faced with something difficult and, hard, like sad and, like people just don't want to think about it, and that's why, like, I think we saw with the LA fire, some people, and we see with hurricanes, sometimes people are underprepared. But we didn't want to just put out the film. It's like 4.5 minutes long and just leave it at that. Um, we wanted to leave people with a call to action. So there's a website called emergencyplanfilm.com. If you haven't seen the film yet, it's actually embedded there. You can go watch it there. And we have a lot of incredible resources. Thanks to our partners, we have ways for people to get more information. We have a bunch of facts on how people with disabilities are impacted in disasters. Of course, everyone is impacted in disaster, but for example, you'll see at the end of the film a stat that people with disabilities are 2 to 4 times more likely than general population to die or be injured in a disaster, which is not surprising because things are not as accessible as they should be on a good day. So when a disaster happens, all of those systems are under stress. And those systems that did not take us into account on a good day are just not going to work for us. And that's a big systemic change, which goes beyond, putting it on, like, yes, of course, we should all have a personal plan, but that personal plan only goes so far if the system is not there for you. Like we see in the movie, if the personal plan is that, emergency services gets called and then they don't come, what do you do in that situation if you have no other options? So I think there's calls to action, things that people can do. One is, go support our nonprofit partners, give them donations. They do incredible work. Go contact your elected officials. Like 504 is under attack right now, and it's all interconnected. Disability, like we see Riley in the movie Coloring the Dead Disability Rights graphic. You can download that, you can print it out, you can color it, you can send it to your state's attorney general. And especially if you're in one of the 17 states that is suing the federal government to get rid of 504, go yell at your attorney general. They need to hear from you. They need to hear that, our lives matter and that this is important, and they don't get to, just take down every disabled person in the country with them over, their bigotry. So there's a lot of resources there. We are going to keep updating it, so we want to make sure that. And there's also actually shout out to June Isaacson Kales, who put together. She's a disabled emergency preparedness expert, which actually none of us are. That disclaimer. But June put together this incredible guide for specifically for people with disabilities, what to do in an evacuation, how to put together an evacuation plan. So it's linked on our website. You can go download it, and it's a great resource for everyone.
Great. That's awesome.
That's really good. Thank you for that information. And I'll make sure I have your guys's YouTube and Facebook, the links to the video in the description already, but I'll add that one directly just to have one more place for people to click it and find it. But make sure you guys do check out the video. The links are right down below. It's called Emergency Plan, Easterseals Film Challenge. And then I even have the Easterseals YouTube channel link as well in the description. So if you guys want to check out the channel, subscribe, follow, as I'm sure even supporting that just in general is a great thing as well. So anything else you guys want to share or do, I will make sure I put that link in there. And then I didn't get you guys' Instagrams before, but if you want to shout them out and then or just send them to me, I can make sure to also add them to the descriptions if people want to follow you guys personally as well, if you want.
So I'll start. You can follow the film at Emergency Plan Film on Instagram. You can follow me personally at Anna Tated. So it's a play on my name, ANNATATED.
I'm at James Ian Music on Instagram, so that's James IAN Music. So yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And mine is my first and last name with an underscore in between. So Margot underscore Gignac, spelled like Gignac.
Okay.
But if you can't spell in French, that's your own problem.
There you go.
Okay. I wonder what James flipped.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I didn't change the landscape of my phone, so I don't know what happened. But
maybe I don't know. Maybe this program is something. I'll check it right now. But anyways,
it's all good.
We're getting ready to wrap here. I don't know. That is weird. Okay. Sorry about that.
I didn't know James wanted to leave so badly.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so make sure you guys do check out the film. It was a really, really good film. I honestly, that was like, I genuinely am like, that was a really good, well put together movie. Like it was really, really good short film, and I'd love to see more. Plus, the fact of having the extra resources and things for people as well, just all about supporting what you guys are doing. So make sure to check it out and follow everybody. And then for Live to Roll stuff, let's go ahead real quick before we get out of here. I want to go ahead and thank our sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors, Mobility Professionals and Urology Professionals. Mobility Professionals is a local DME in Southern California. So if you're anywhere in the Southern California, need a wheelchair or standing frame, commode, anything like that, please contact them. The information is also down in the description below. They have great customer service that can help you get insurance and everything taken care of. And then Urology Professionals is their sister company, and they're nationwide. So if you need catheter supplies anywhere in the country, they can ship them directly to your doorstep. And again, great customer service, great people from the community that help out at all kinds of events locally here. So we appreciate their support, and we appreciate you guys supporting them. And then as far as stuff we got coming up on the channel this week, tomorrow Tom should be on for doing a live cooking demo, cooking and life skills with Tom on Wednesday. So he's a C5, C6 quad as well, and he will be doing some live cooking. Not sure what he has on the menu for the night, but check it out. You can hang out in the chat, give him suggestions, questions, anything like that. So make sure to hop on there tomorrow. And then Thursday, we actually have Brianna, Nikki, Ashley, Maya, and Jessica coming on for Wheel Girl Talk on Thursday.
Oh.
So make sure to check that out, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And though I think they're actually talking about religion and their relationships with Jesus for the topic that they're doing for this week. So if you guys want to hang out and join the conversation, check them out on Thursday. All right, so that's about it we got for the channel and stuff. Really appreciate you guys coming on, sharing. Anna, it's been great to have you the last couple years on and sharing the festival and you guys' films, and just a great job with everything. So yeah, just want to thank you guys again, and make sure everybody does reach out if you want to. Follow them, message them on Instagram, any of that stuff. I'll make sure I have that. And please make sure you watch the film. So check it out.
Yeah, it was a great film.
Thank you guys for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
It was awesome.
I love all the quads here.
There
you go.
We have a lot of quads in the chat as well too. So a lot of like Ken, Leon, Derek, a lot of people actually. We do have quite a bit of a quad following, but in general, we have tried to be inclusive for all disabilities, though. So definitely, even James, I'm gonna maybe even see if I can get your contact info and talk to you about your disability, because you got something different we don't really talk about.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much. That'd be cool. Yeah,
for sure. So
and I'm gonna save yours, Margot, because every once in a while I'm looking always for another quad to get them involved in something, and.
Yeah.
I got you, and I might have to hit you up.
Yeah.
Margot can also.
I'm also a veteran quad like you guys, so I got some insight from the female perspective, maybe.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Anna?
I was gonna say, get Margot to do a cooking demo. James and I will come over and like taste whatever she's making.
There we go.
One, two. That's
Okay.
what I'm up for. Let's do it. That was awesome. So, all right, you guys. Thank you again so much. Thank you, everybody that's been in the chat, and live to roll, everybody. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.